What I would like to do now is actually to introduce Lara Moltoni, who is a Curtin graduate. Lara is a senior consultant currently working for Ernst and Young Advisory in Perth. She began her working life as a registered nurse in operating theatres and coronary care. Lara transitioned into the role of clinical researcher working in the pharmaceutical industry, where she was responsible for the implementation and management of critical drug trials for major pharmaceutical companies. After completing a Curtin MBA, she now works in process improvement, partnering clients to optimise how they operate in areas such as organisational design, supply chain and shared services. Please welcome Lara.
Karen, thank you, and thank you everybody very much for having me here and for the opportunity to share with you my postgraduate experience and really the value of postgraduate education to me. I think what's best if I just briefly run you through my story, which I think illustrates a lot of the points that have been mentioned here this evening to begin with. And yes, I did start life as a registered nurse quite a few years ago in Sydney, and to be honest, I had really no idea what I wanted to do for a career. After nursing for a couple of years in operating theatres and coronary care, what I did know is that I didn't want to work nights, and that was pretty much the limit of my career goal. At that stage, I was lucky enough to pretty much fall into a role in the clinical research industry. Through some contacts of mine, where I had the opportunity to work with major drug companies running their pivotal studies for submission to the FDA and the TGA, which was a great job for me. I got to fly around a lot, I got to hold meetings and have lots of dinners and those sorts of things. But it really joined together both my clinical skills, but also began to develop my interest in businesses and how they work and how they operate and fit together. At some point in that time, I then decided to move to Perth and work as a contractor, which in some respects was a great idea because I got to charge a lot more for what I was doing, but on the downside of that is that there's not a lot of opportunities for people in the pharmaceutical industry in Perth. And to add to that, could be seen as a good thing, was I ended up getting married to an engineer here, which further limited my opportunity to then move back to Melbourne or Sydney. There's not a lot of mining in Melbourne or Sydney. So we were kind of I was in a position that I really didn't know where I could go with my career. So it was around this time that I did start to think about what I might like to do with my career in terms of where I saw myself as a business in the future. And I started to recognise that I was really interested in business and being a business leader. But what I found at that point was when I started to apply for roles and so forth, I really wasn't getting a look in. It became very difficult to even convince anybody that I had any skills, any project management skills, stakeholder management skills, anything at all of value because of just the difference in the industries here. I also at that time had a family. I had 3 children and we were often put on secondment. I spent 18 months in China, which again limited my career opportunities and made it quite difficult for me to progress. So after a while I started to think about what I'm going to have to do to actually progress and make that leap into the business world and really reach the goals that I wanted to reach. And I started thinking about doing a postgraduate degree, and I started thinking about what sort of degree would be useful. And really an MBA to me came up as being useful because it became more of a generalist degree. We were talking about whether it became specialised or become more generalist. And for me it was about, I didn't feel I needed to be any more specialised, I needed to be more marketable outside the health industry. So I did my MBA. And what I found through the Curtin MBA was everything's been mentioned tonight. Flexibility, ability to study online. I was living in Vancouver at the time. I completed 7 of my subjects online while I was juggling 3 children and a husband who was travelling overseas an awful lot. What the facilities that Curtin provided through Blackboard, through the online lectures and those sorts of things made it possible for me to learn at the same time and really shorten that length of time of completing my MBA. I then returned back to Australia and was again lucky enough to be able to attend a Curtin event where we, with Ernst and Young, where they were seeking people with MBAs, and I was employed about 2 weeks after that. So I hope that gives you some idea of what an MBA can do for you in terms of, or postgraduate degree, in terms of progressing your career. And I really did the transition and the sort of stepping up the ladder. So I got both outcomes from doing a postgraduate degree, because now I'm in a situation where I have a lot of opportunity to grow and really can move into both mining. At the moment I'm working for BHP, or government or health or utilities, or really any of the industries in Western Australia through that postgraduate qualification. And what I will add there, I think, just another small thing that I'll mention, particularly about the Curtin MBA, is that they were just recently recognised globally as being the 3rd ranking MBA in Australia and the 4th in Asia, which is a real plus for us, and was really, and for me personally, was really noted by Ernst and Young in my employment. So I hope that sort of gives you some idea of where the postgraduate education did for me and how I progressed through my career, and sort of illustrates the value of undertaking a long course of study. And it is hard work, and particularly juggling all the things you need to juggle. And I would recommend to anyone, go and buy a big freezer, because that's how I managed my life, was by having a freezer constantly full of food so I didn't have to shop. So good luck to you all. I hope you all do take the leap. It is worth it. It is an investment in yourself, and you will see the return on that investment when you get to the other side.
Thank you for your attentiveness, and thanks for taking that first step. Good night.